So I know you were big on Namor. I love Namor in Wakanda Forever, but you especially made a really threat. You made a really big threat post, which made a lot of views. Talking about why Namor was a great character. So why number one? Because you have to give the fans context. Why are you such a fan of Namor? And then number two, why do you think that this guy lines up with the comic accurate Namor, and why you're so happy with his casting in the MCU?
So first of all, I love Namor. I think first of all, he's like Marvel's like OG anti-hero. He's got really unique powers in terms of, underwater, flight, superhuman strength. He is not just the king of Atlantis, but he's also a mutant. And he is the king of attitude, super defiant, arrogant, like just my kind of guy. And I just think he looks badass too, but he really is like absolutely savage, doesn't give a F, does what he wants, bends everything to his will, and he will always do what's in his interest and mutants' interests. And the perfect example, nobody had the balls to use the antimatter injection system, which is what Reed and the Illuminati built to kill the other Earth. So incursion towards collide, either they both die or only one dies. They create the antimatter injection system to kill the other Earth before it collides to save their Earth. None of them end up having the balls to use it except for Namor. And that is so Namor. But Namor is the man. And I thought Tanaquerta was great as Namor just because he had such a commanding presence, super charismatic, really balanced the vulnerability, but the ruthlessness of the character. And, his the action. I thought he looked great in it. I thought he played great. I thought he was great with Shuri, but at the same time killed Shuri's mom. Like he really was that guy. And a lot of people were like, "Oh, well, he doesn't look like him." I disagree. I think he does look like him. I don't like what they did in terms of changing his heritage from Atlantean to Talakanese, if that's the way to say it. I still think he was a great character, and I'm glad they didn't kill him off because I want to see him again. And I think that he should be on the Illuminati because he is in the comics, and he's like that's one of the things that's so cool about the Illuminati is it's not all heroes, and you do get characters like that sometimes they worry might be acting in bad faith, or sometimes you need someone who's not a hero who's okay to do something as savage as use the antimatter injection device. Like you need heroes. And also a lot of the times the best villains are the ones that aren't just flat out villains. Like people like Magneto, Namor, Doctor Doom, like all of them aren't just flat out villains, and they're a lot more complex and nuanced and difficult to define. And Namor is another one of those.
I agree with everything you say. I mean, I agree with all that. I mean, I think Namor is one of the best casting that they've done, and I agree that and I understand what they were trying to do. But if you dive deep on Wakanda, why didn't you do the same? Because my whole thing was like it just wasn't consistent. Because if that was the case, why didn't you make Wakanda? Why didn't you just change the name of Wakanda to like Nigeria? Then, if you're going to do that, right? You know what I mean? Like it just didn't feel consistent. But
So
whatever, I'll let it go.
the reason they gave was because they didn't want to, I think,
Oh, the
confuse fans
Aquaman.
because
Yeah,
that's so ridiculous.
corny.
And I said that to someone on Twitter. I was like, that's like saying we have to rename New York City because it was in King Kong.
The way that I feel with things like Black Panther and Namor, I see more as honoring of the culture of the Pacific culture because it didn't feel
Khan.
Yeah. Like it felt more of like an honoring. The only issue I have is
Fair point.
the underwater scenes were terrible. The underwater scenes were so bad. Oh my gosh. I would love for someone like James Wan to come in and help because I do think the underwater scenes with Aquaman were better. And the main issue that I had is that just the underwater Talo concept was just too dark. It was like it was so dark underwater, and I understand that's realistic because underwater it is super dark, but like I wanted more light and more color
I
added to
disagree. I thought it
Talokan.
was so cool. Especially my favorite was the actress. I know her name because she was in How to Make It in America, which is a great show. But her name's Lake Bell, and she was on like the research team, and they put that submersible in the water, and like the light went out, and it was almost like a little horror-y like that. And I'm not a horror guy, but like
Yeah.
that was super cool to me. Um, and a lot of people were like, "Oh, well, that looked like nothing like Namor." Like, bro, even in the promo image, like they took that like exact pose from the comics. Like,
Yeah. Can we also talk about that for a second?
yeah,
I really want to talk about this because Chris Evans, ScarJo, Chris Hemsworth, they don't necessarily look like the original comic book character. They don't. Okay. And I think that there's certain features that they have that make it work. Like when it comes to casting for a character, you're not always going to find the person that looks exactly like them. The question is, can they act? Do they look enough to be that character? And can they act enough in the personality? That's why I
so
like
I
Pedro
have the best
Pascal.
example. I have the
Go
best
ahead.
example.
Who's an example?
Daniel Craig, James Bond. Okay,
Exactly.
when they casted him, people lost their minds. And I've even seen Barbara Broccoli, the James Bond producer, say how, people were just so unfair to him. And, he hit it well, but I could tell it really got to him. And I remember, like, and I was a kid when this happened. I remember, like, all these people are idiots. Like, let's give this guy a shot. Like, if they picked him, I'm sure he's great. And we got arguably the best Bond of all time. So, and you're not going to find someone that looks identical to the characters. And it's interesting that people will say that about someone like Namor, but they don't say it when Jonathan Majors plays Kang, So, and I don't know why. I'm not making any kind of implication here. But it's interesting to me that you complain about it for Namor, but you don't complain about it with Kang. And you're right. Steve Rogers, Chris Evans doesn't really look like Steve Rogers. Um, you know, RDJ definitely looks like Tony
Yeah,
Stark.
but ScarJo doesn't look like comic Natasha. Chris Evans doesn't look like comic Thor. I mean, like, but the reason why is because these characters embody who they are. It doesn't matter if they look exactly like them, and that's why I really don't
Close
care.
enough.
Yeah, and that's why I don't care if Pedro Pascal has a stash on it because the question is, can this guy
That I
embody?
disagree with because that's an optional thing. Like they could shave the mustache. That I
But
disagree with.
but at the end of the day, mustache or not, the question is, can this guy embody the character? And when it comes to Namor, this dude embodies Namor's personality and who he
Well,
is.
why can't they just how I don't understand how you could defend the mustache when they could just shave the mustache.
Hey,
Like
hey,
it seems to me the question to be asking is why
Thunderbolt Ross, he doesn't have his stash. No one cares.
what?
Thunderbolt Ross doesn't have his stash.
Thunderbolt Ross isn't as iconic of a character as
Red
Reed Richards.
Hawk. I'm kidding. I'm joking. I'm not
Yeah.
going to act like he is. I'm joking, bro.
Yeah.
Calm down. I'm not going to say Red Hawk is as
And
iconic as
and
but who
Reed
cares?
Richards, a lot of people aren't happy about the casting, and it seems like something that takes literally 2 minutes to do, or not even shave the mustache.
Hey, it might be shade, bro. Who knows? Everything we have seen so far is stash, though. So y'all might
Yeah.
y'all might be cooked on that one, but I'm not.
I think the question to ask is why they won't shave it if they're not going to do it.
Hey man, hey man.
They better have a good reason why they can't.
Maybe they just want him to have a mustache. Okay, shout out to Matt Shackman.